I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. In this episode, my wife Pam and I recap Day 3 and 4 of the World Discipleship Summit, Tuesday and Wednesday, August 2nd and 3rd. All this and more on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no-regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. I'm back home in Tucson, Arizona after an awesome weekend in Orlando, Florida at the World Discipleship Summit. Honey, great to have you on the program.
Oh, thanks. I'm really excited to be here.
So we are back. We got back. This is Thursday, and we got back on Wednesday, August 3rd, after 4 days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of classes. Now, there were 3 tracks going on. There was the campus track, singles track, and then the International Leadership Conference. And the conference is going on, but we're not participating in the second half. We're just there primarily for the International Leadership Conference. In this episode, we're going to cover some of the highlights from that section, especially Tuesday and Wednesday of the World Discipleship Summit. Let's talk about the women's program. Honey, tell me about it.
Yes, that started Tuesday morning. The sisters got together. Of course, the worship was amazing. It was so great to be there with all the women. And just a great job that Irene Renton and Arlene Makowski from New York, they were, helped coordinate the whole women's time. And it started out with 4 sisters sharing their testimonies. A sister from New York, a sister from Sao Paulo, a sister from South Africa, and a sister from Chicago. And so moving to hear their lives. They basically shared their testimonies, how God has worked in their life. The last sister that shared from Chicago was from Romania and had been adopted. She was part of the Hope Orphanage in Romania. She had become a Christian there, studied the Bible as a teenager. Wow. Then when she was 17, got adopted to the States. A family in New Hampshire adopted her and her brothers, and she just shared about her story. And that was just, wow, so powerful and inspiring. Her and her husband are serving in the full-time ministry in Chicago.
That's so cool.
It was so cool. So it was just blow away. And then the guest speaker, Lena Wooten, wow. I mean, she's just a hero. I mean, she just shared, how she became a Christian. I think she said that after 4 months of being a disciple, she went to the full-time ministry. And she's been doing that ever since, And so her class, she talked about our identity in Christ. And she talked about, who does God think you are? Who do you think you are? And who do people think you are?
Wow.
Yeah, so it was very deep, very powerful. With just really so much respect to Sean and Lena and what they've gone through.
It's got to be messy. I mean,
gosh,
Lena is Russian, Sean's American.
Yes.
Their daughter's Ukrainian, and married a Ukrainian.
Yes.
So I mean, oh boy, it's got to be very complicated. I just can't even imagine what that's like.
I know it.
On the men's program, Tuesday morning, we went and met at 9:00. Tom McGurk got up there, and of course the music was awesome again. I mean, every single time, goes without saying, is just blow away. Those guys, the dancing, the energy. I mean, they were just going off. I mean, they didn't care there was a bunch of guys out in the audience. They were just bringing it with energy.
They were. So I loved that.
There was a guy named, I believe it was Murphy. And he was just going, give 110%.
Wow.
And of course, Joshua Tollifer and all the other guys were up there doing a great job. Tom McGurk got up and talked about being hidden with Christ in God. And he said, are we hiding in Christ or in our position? And he talked about, is Christ your profession or your obsession?
Oh,
I love those sound bites.
Yeah.
And then he just talked about how we need men who are fruitful, effective, that will inspire other men. And I thought it was a great lead-in. It was kind of a 10-minute TED Talk style address. And then Chris Ogbenaya from Lagos, Nigeria got up and shared and just how Christ is the supreme authority. And then it was the main speaker, Budi Hartono, who leads the church in Jakarta, Indonesia. And it was awesome because Harlem Salim did the introduction, and with a name like Booty, you're gonna get some joking.
You are. You can't hold back.
I mean, we were rolling because Harlem said, "I love booty," and we were. Oh my
laughing. Gosh!
But Booty got up there. I mean, it's amazing. English is his second language. But he got up there and just preached with so much power, so much intensity.
Wow.
I was so impressed. He talked about how there are now 36 churches in Indonesia, over 6,500 disciples. And then he started talking about what is our identity in Christ, that we belong to Christ. And he said, our identity is in crisis these days. And he said, my identity isn't defined by what I have done, but what Christ has done for me and through me. And so, I mean, he had a lot of scriptures, all coming from Colossians, because the theme of the whole conference was Colossians.
Right.
And he just talked about Christ has reconciled you. He's presented you as holy. We've been circumcised by Christ. We've been raised with him. Everything's what Jesus has done for us, not what we've been doing, but what Jesus has done already. He's made us alive with Christ. And he just talked about he's canceled the charge of our legal indebtedness. We're free.
Right.
And then he talked about a guy named John Sinaga who went to Papua New Guinea, and he was a guy who became a Christian in the church in Jakarta. He was selling fruit at a roadside stand, became a Christian, but then just kind of ran away. He thought he could make more money in Papua, which is kind of the far eastern island of Indonesia. But then he came back and he repented. He got restored. Then he went and planted 2 churches.
Oh my gosh!
In a place called Depok and then Bogor, and then built these churches to like 150, raised up leaders.
Crazy.
And he just talked about how we need to stop excusing ourselves and start expecting more from ourselves. It was really awesome. And he just said everyone's an influencer, no matter what.
I love that.
And then he talked about how my identity is defined by who Christ is. And he just said when God doesn't change our situation, he wants to use our situation to change us. So he had all kinds of these like sound bites, just, like you got to live to love and love to live and stuff. He was just,
he's been to Hobby Lobby.
I know. He was crushing it. I mean, he had so many good ones. And then he said that, one of the things, I mean, what's amazing about what happened in Indonesia, I think I mentioned this in our previous episode, is that they had 1,200 baptisms
during COVID.
2020 and 2021, 2 years.
Crazy.
I mean, just 1,200.
Yeah.
I mean, just like, who's doing that? Nobody.
Right, no.
Nobody.
It's inspiring.
And then he said, one of the secrets was, he said, they refuse to believe God can't be glorified during the pandemic.
Wow.
It's just a faith issue. And they had their most baptisms in 20 and 21. And so he just said, don't let problems paralyze us. It's Christ that we're serving. And Christ is bigger than all our problems. And then this third point was my identity isn't defined by being the best version of myself, but becoming the person Christ wants me to be.
Yeah.
And he said it's not self-actualization. He referred to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he said it's not self-actualization, but Christ actualization that we're going after.
Love that.
And he talked about how Paul presenting people perfect in Christ. That was Paul's goal for other people. And being renewed in the image of its creator. And he talked about Kiki Suarlan, and he's someone I interviewed before. And in an earlier episode, he's converted a ton of people. He's a very wealthy disciple, employed 6,000 people. And I was talking to Harlem, and he said that Kiki, during the pandemic, made a decision by faith. He said, I'm not going to let anyone go during the pandemic.
Wow.
And he has over 6,000 employees. And so he was able to keep all of his employees working in the textile industry there in Indonesia without letting anybody go. having to have any layoffs during that time. Just totally
Love
awesome faith. And so that was fantastic. And I was just so impressed by how he's preaching so intensely in English, which was not his first language.
Right.
It's very easy to understand. And just, I mean, his arms, his body language was just bringing the energy. So fantastic job there. Okay, so that was the morning. And then in the afternoon, we had a couple of young guns.
That afternoon.
That afternoon and evening. We had a D time with Bruce and Robin in there. That was great to see them, and great getting discipled by Bruce and Robin. They just rolled into town and just gave us some help. That was fantastic.
Thank you, Bruce and Robin.
But then we went and I got to listen a little bit after that lesson from Booty to a lesson by Chris Reed on masculinity.
Yeah, and our son James, that was one of his favorite classes.
Yeah, I asked him. He just loved that class. Because we had to go to that D time, I missed a part of it. I only got about 30 minutes into it, but Chris Reed is a great teacher. I definitely want to go back and listen to it. I mean, he was just bringing it. He's really organized and powerful. He's a great teacher. And he lives it. He's a missionary. He's a man's man. Yeah. And so that was a great lesson. But so in the afternoon, I think it was about 5, we had Kyle Eastman and Paris Cunningham.
Yeah, that was powerful.
Both small church leaders, both leading college towns, Ann Arbor, Michigan, home of the University of Michigan, and also Princeton, New Jersey, Princeton College. And so Kyle, it was kind of like they talked to similar topics. What'd you think?
I thought it was really powerful. I had never heard either of those men speak. I didn't really know who they were, but I was very impressed with their passion. You know, they preached about the same thing, about just having a love for the poor.
Right.
Which and then of course Ben Barnett got up and introduced them beforehand, and it was really convicting because it's so easy to think about how we're going to grow our church, right? And then it can be easy to delegate that hope work, the poor projects. Okay, we got our hope director, we got, deacons of hope, but they really just drove home the point that it has to start at the top. It has to start with the leader, has to be their passion. Kyle Eastman, mission with Christ, and he just really talked about that. I mean, gosh, it was very powerful, and just what it means to really love God, Matthew 25, and Paris Cunningham too. He just. It was very, very challenging but inspiring how they really took to heart just loving your neighbor as yourself. And what does that mean? Going into your neighborhood and really loving those people there. So those are really the takeaways for me. It was just, really having a heart for the most vulnerable, having that compassion, not just be something that's kind of part of your ministry, but boy, that's something that it's really at the forefront of every church leader, really making sure that as disciples, that's a priority. And then Paris Cunningham, it was, the whole idea of really serving your neighbor, really making a difference in our neighborhoods. It was very inspiring.
Right. It was interesting how similar their lessons were in terms of the theme, because both of them are go-getters in the ministry. Both of them have had explosive ministries. Kyle Eastman at the University of Florida, the past 10 years. I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about that campus ministry that he was leading. And then Paris Cunningham went to Princeton and Mercer County, where Princeton's located, and just the church took off and the campus ministry took off. But what they emphasize is the mission plus don't forget the poor. Reach your neighborhood. Paris Cunningham talked about the book, The Art of Neighboring, and really impacting the neighborhood around you. And so they did 2 lessons, each 25 minutes, but both of them really complemented each other.
Yes.
They're kind of saying the same thing in just different ways and different situations. So that was really awesome because they've got the power of a growing ministry plus the care for the poor.
Right. And I really did love what Paris Cunningham said that, it's not just about serving the poor, loving the poor. We're loving God.
Right. Right.
And that's what we all need to do. And
Right.
as a result, when you love God, then the most tangible way to love God is to give the hungry food. You're loving God, not just those people, but this is how we express our love to God. We serve up. I just thought that was a really great point.
Mm-hmm.
So
Kyle was super humble.
he was.
And he just came in and did a great job. And just, I thought they both did a really, really good
They
job.
did. They really did.
That was a great evening on Tuesday night.
Yes.
And then we came back on yesterday morning.
Right.
And it was the finale. So there's some announcements, and can't remember who started it off that morning, but of course the worship was awesome.
And don't forget Al Baird.
Oh, Al Baird.
And
Okay.
Pat Gemple.
Al and Pat.
Oh my gosh.
That's
that,
right.
That was so powerful. And Doug Arthur came up and introduced them.
That's right. Okay, so Al and Al Baird and Pat Gemple, they were there in the early days of Boston in the late 70s.
Shared their thoughts. Al said it was like a rocket ship, right? Getting the movement of God started.
I know, isn't that amazing?
Yes.
What Al told me when he was down here in Tucson for last fall, he said that they grew for 10 years at 60% a year for 10 years.
Wow.
I mean, just wow.
Yeah.
I mean, there was something in the air that was really amazing.
Yeah.
But then Pat shared, and just the conviction that lady has is just awesome. And just really,
So
really
impressive.
respect her. And then Doug Arthur got up and shared about what's going on around the world in missions.
Right. All the mission societies had special videos, which was so encouraging.
I don't know about you, honey, but I was thinking, I want to go overseas again.
Let's go.
I'm serious. I was like, man, I just want to pack up my bags and reach the beach or go to the Andes or go
The
somewhere.
Baltics, they need people.
I mean, I got the itch. I was like, man, I want to go. I want to help. I want to do it. I just was like, man, what can I do?
Right.
How can I spread the word more? So I'm hoping, maybe,
Didn't Sean Wooten get up there that morning too and share?
Did
he
he?
did. Yeah, I think he did. And talked about
Okay,
Ukraine.
he shared briefly. That's
Yes,
right.
he did.
Shared, gave a recap of what's happening there.
Yes.
Shared some good news. That was fantastic. And then Chris Zillman got up there.
Yes. Woo, let's talk about this.
I mean,
wow, Chris.
it's like the ILC was bookended by two really powerful guys. Sam Powell,
Yeah.
a lot of power, a lot of experience, a lot of authority, and then Chris Zillman.
Yes.
And Chris is younger, probably by 20 or 30 years, but Chris is not a youngster. He's probably mid 40s or something like that. But he brought it. He surprised me.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
Oh my gosh. I was really moved. I mean, he just, from the very beginning, talked about this really great analogy with his children, and how the older brother was kind of getting picked on, and then the younger brother, just punched the other kid, but he just talked about, he said, what happened to our solidarity as a movement? He just asked some real penetrating questions, why all the fighting, right? He just brought it out. Talked about the distractions and that we've got to set our hearts and minds on something else, on what's above. And then he just said, hey, listen, I'm going to take out the we here, right? I was like, oh, how people say, well, we, and this, he's like, nope, I'm just talking to you, and you guys are liars.
Right.
It was like, whoa, very, very powerful.
I love the story that he shared about his son Isaiah. His son Isaiah was getting picked on.
Yep.
And he was seeing it through a window. It was like in a park or something like that.
Or playhouse.
And this bully was picking on his son, but the younger son was a little bit out of view, but all of a sudden he saw this little fist come up and punch the bully.
Right.
And he was like, that was a great moment.
Yes, a proud dad moment right there.
And then he said, where's our solidarity?
Right.
Why aren't we fighting for each other?
Exactly.
And
yes.
it was great. And he's just said, yeah, that's right. He said, you're a liar. And I was like, ooh, where's this going?
Right.
I mean, that's a strong statement.
It is a strong statement.
And he said that, what he said is, it was deep. He was saying a lot. It was scripted.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of words in this lesson, but he said leaders are not facing their bias toward their own kids, and they're letting that affect their judgment.
Right.
And they're giving the appearance that they're unbiased, but they're allowing how their kids are doing to affect their judgment and their ability to stand on the Bible.
Right.
And that's really affecting people. And I was like, wow, that is so true. It's super insightful.
Super insightful. And then, just the whole idea, I mean, he challenged people's marriages.
Right.
Like, are they getting open, getting help, getting accountability? He really parked on that.
Right.
About how, is your marriage just, lackluster? Is it dying? And nobody knows. And he just said, that's deceit. He said, you're a liar.
Right.
If you're not bringing that into the light. I was like, whoa.
Right. Because if you're saying I'm leading a discipling ministry, but you have set yourself up where you're not getting discipled,
right,
you're a liar.
That's right. You're a liar.
You're basically setting it up so no one's really in your life.
Exactly.
And that was, it was great and it was powerful. It got real quiet in there.
It sure did.
And then he talked about the Boston bombing, the Patriot Day bombing. I think it was 2013, where those two brothers they set up the bombs at the closing part of the Boston Marathon, and a lot of people were maimed from that. But they did a study, and they tracked who was the most affected emotionally by that. And he said it wasn't the people who were there. It wasn't even the relatives of the people who were injured. He said it was the people that spent 6 or more hours on social media.
Wow, this was powerful.
Just watching the impact. They were the ones that were the most traumatized.
Yes. Gosh.
Even though they had nothing directly connected to it, it wasn't the people who were directly connected to it. It was the people who were just watching on social media and the news for more than 6 hours. They had the deepest impact emotionally.
Right.
The most trauma from that event. And that was really powerful.
That was powerful.
And so from that, he said, listen, we're spending all of our time on social media. We're affected by the world through media. And then we're coming to staff meetings and saying, I'm a unbiased person when it comes to where the church needs to go.
Right.
And he said, you're a liar.
Exactly. We're so affected by that. That was super, super powerful.
And, my only regret is I wish he had a little more time. I just, feedback in the lesson, he really needed 45 minutes. He only had 35 minutes, and I wanted him to develop it more. And
exactly. I didn't want him to stop. I wanted him to keep talking.
I want him to get really specific. I want him to bring out some examples, because I thought he's really on target, but I wanted him to just kind of hammer it home. What'd you think?
Yeah, no, I felt the same way. I didn't want him to stop. I thought he really hit some nerves, some triggers, things that we need to talk about. And I really appreciated his courage, his guts to just, that's not easy to preach to that group.
Right.
But he was just bringing out those issues.
Right.
And I'm really glad. I'm really thankful. It was really, really powerful. But you're right. I wish there had been more.
Right, because you're kind of left having to extrapolate, okay, what's he saying here? And the thing that I got from it is, okay, we're allowing our kids and how our kids are doing, and if our kids are struggling, to affect our view. We're wanting the church to change to fit where our kids are doing. And I've seen that. I've had friends who kids struggle, and all of a sudden their convictions start to waver.
Right. Oh, it's so easy to happen. And yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, and also the example that he shared about his dating relationship.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
With Megan, or when she was studying the Bible,
right.
And just how the sisters were willing to challenge her and say, because Megan was dating Chris before they became disciples, and that she was willing to give that relationship up, right. And that the sisters were challenging her to do that. And it's like, ooh, I don't know. Nowadays it gets kind of...
Well, that's what he said. He said, I wonder if you would do that now.
Right, exactly. And he was so grateful for her conviction, because it got him to start studying the Bible.
Right. Because he said it was Marsha Lamb and another person. He said, because they did that, and they...
Christy Lamb. It was Christy.
Okay.
Christy Lamb.
Yeah, not Marsha. Marsha's the mom. Okay, Christy.
Roger Lamb's daughter.
But because of that, that's how he became a Christian. He said he never would have become a Christian unless those stakes were raised to that level.
Exactly. That was powerful.
It was really awesome.
Yeah.
And so he thanked her. And then he just said how news media is really affecting. I thought, okay, all the stuff that's been going on the last couple of years with the gay agenda, there's Black Lives Matter, there's racial issues, there's all sorts of stuff, and how all of these things are affecting our view, and how we're saying, oh, it's not really affecting me, but it is affecting the church. And the leaders are bringing that into the church, and we've got to go back to the Bible. I mean,
we have to be so careful.
He didn't say that. That's the part I wish he would have said, but I think that's the application where it's like, okay, how are we allowing the world, our children, to affect us? And are we willing to face it, that it is affecting us?
Right.
And we need to stand up.
Right.
And just say, listen, we have to pay attention to what Jesus wants.
Exactly.
Not what our kids want and not what media is telling us.
Right. It was a powerful message to end the ILC. Really powerful.
I mean, it was awesome. Yeah. It was great, because that's the kind of lesson I was really looking for that you want in an ILC. Is you want something that just grabs you and just shakes you around a little bit and just go, whoa, okay, that's intense.
Yeah.
Kind of a prophetic lesson.
Right.
Where you feel like, okay, this is God talking to me here. Yeah. So that was a great lesson. And Chris, great job if you're listening to this, and also look forward to having him on the podcast.
Absolutely. Him and his wife.
I know. Can't wait.
Yeah.
But that wrapped it up. We closed out, and it was a fantastic conference overall. Any final comments about?
Well, just I loved, wasn't it that last song, Break the Chains?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the worship, it was so moving, so powerful.
I think especially coming from a smaller church.
Oh my gosh.
You don't get that kind of power. I mean, maybe even a bigger church, you don't get it as much, but it's such a blessing. I mean, it's really awesome. Is. So it was fantastic. If you missed it, man, make sure that you watch it online. But
listen to the classes.
Listen to the classes. There's so many I missed, and I want to go back to.
Yeah, me too.
I'm sorry if I didn't get a chance to cover your class. I look forward to watching as many as I can.
Right.
But it was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal time. So thank you so much for listening to the Rob Skinner podcast. It's great to have you listen, and have an awesome, awesome week. Thank you so much for joining the Rob Skinner podcast. If you're enjoying this podcast, please hit the subscribe button and let your friends know about it and how to find it. Because my goal is to inspire you to make this life count, live a no regrets life, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day and make this life count.